my presentation is called Resident to Resident Aggression in Quebec Private Seniors Residence. So what are private seniors residents? Well, it's those big apartment buildings that actually are built to receive specifically older adults. Some will set the age at 60, others at 70, but usually those buildings are there to provide some apartments. It's mainly renting, and the clientele is mainly older persons which are autonomous, or what we could call semi-autonomous, or kind of losing a little bit of capacity, but still capable of living alone. And many times these buildings are actually owned by big holdings. So it's private and it's for profit. However, you will see a few times that NGOs are developing those types of buildings and that they can be non-for-profit. But the study I will be presenting today, actually I'm presenting two studies, which are part of a program, were done with a big private holding that I cannot name for now because we made an agreement with them that we would name it after the research is completed. You have to know that in those buildings, usually what is presenting as advertising is come here for your safety, come here for your security. So people go there and they can receive different type of services that they will pay for. There could be a guard at the door. There could be some meals provided, like a beautiful dining room. In the fancy residence, you will have a swimming pool, a gym, and everything. People can also have some cleaning services in their apartment. They can have some help in their medication or to change bandages. So it's places where people go to live, but can access easily to services. What is interesting about this research is that we were invited by that private holding to work with them. So like Gloria said, I really want to thank the Quebec government who provides me the money for my research chair. It's been in place since 2010. So already 12 years now. It's located at the University of Sherbrooke and at the Research Center on Aging. Even though if my name is the only one on the first slide, I really want to say that we're a large team. I couldn't do this thing alone. So I have a colleague from the University of Sherbrooke, which is working with me, which is Mélanie Levasseur. I have another colleague from UQTR, which is Hélène Carbonneau. And we have a team of students, so a postdoc, a doctoral student, and we had some masters and also bachelor student working with us. And the other partner is the Fondation Jasmerois Sophie Desmarais. This foundation is actually quite interesting because they were specialists in bullying in schools. And over the years, they decided to open and look at bullying in the workplace, but also bullying of older adults. And they also changed their focus. Usually they were really targeting bullying, but now they decided to take a more positive approach and to promote benevolence. So it was very pleasant to work with them, and I will give you a series of examples through my presentation. So the two projects that I will be presenting today are funded by the Social Science and Humanities Research Council. This is part of the participatory program that they have. So one was a 1-year grant and the other one which followed just after was a 3-year grant, and it's still ongoing. So my plan is the research program, give you a few tips, present the aim of my presentation, a little bit of the state of knowledge, but you will see that Aileen's state of knowledge and mine are quite similar, a bit of method and main focus on results and conclusion. So our research program and the aim of the presentation. So it was quite interesting to see that about 4 years ago, I received a phone call from a service at university who is there to build linkage between the private sector and the university. So one person who was the manager, the high manager of one of those private residents called the university because they had witnessed a series of tensions between older adults. They were not calling it mistreatment or violence or aggression. They were just saying that they were seeing bad behaviors. It could be physical, it could be, a lot of it was verbal, but also a lot of times nonverbal situation. So they really wanted to understand what was going on. So with them, we crafted a research project that was funded, and we went and we did a series of interviews with witnesses of resident to resident aggression. And then for the second project that followed, we decided to go not with witnesses, but really with people who did experience it. So we got that 3 years funding to do a needs study with residents who experience it, employees, but also external interveners who intervene in situation. Why external interveners? Because we saw that a lot of times they will ask partners outside of the building to help them to resolve the situation. We also did the development, and we're testing a program. And actually, we started a few months ago to evaluate that testing to finish the program, and it will be implemented afterwards in a series of those buildings. So my presentation today is to give you a synthesis of the result, to show also how the problem is portrayed in those settings. And I really want to explain the objective that we have of this dual program that we were presenting. We want to promote wellness care. We could also call it benevolence, and I will explain later on why. And also we want at the same time to counter resident to resident abuse. So you already see that we want a double message, naming the problem because it's important to call a spade, but also to foster something positive to introduce changes. And no surprise, I will not read my definition because Ellen just gave it a few minutes ago, but it's important to say that in that meeting with Lynn McDonald many years ago, Ellen was there, Gloria was there, I was there, and we all thought that it was really important to look at those situations. So the state of knowledge. Well, in those type of apartment buildings for seniors, the aggression is quite important. Actually, a study by Trumpeter in the Netherlands, said that 20% of residents affirmed that they have been subject to resident aggression. And 40% of the employees mentioned that they observed it. It has numerous consequences. They can be psychological consequences, physical consequences, social consequences. I will say it later, but I can already say that the worst consequences will be that certain older adult will decide to move away and change facility because they cannot stand living there anymore. It's also occurs primarily in common areas of residence. So yes, it can be in the apartments, but usually the apartments are private. So it's mainly in the common areas, such as the dining room, such as in rooms where they will have activities like bingos and other types of activity, playing cards and things like that. We also saw in our research that it can occur in other places, such as elevators, and I'll come back to that. So the research also showed that it's mainly the targets who are new residents or residents with physical or psychological challenges. Psychological challenges, you can hear here, early stages maybe of dementia or at least some type of memory loss. And also residents with atypical appearance, so the ones that are different than the general mass. The conductive factors that came out from the literature review is the arrival of new residents. And actually a lot of the things that are reported are the difficulties for people to get into those buildings and try to understand the informal code of getting along with the others. It's also associated with aging and also the desire to control over a specific space. And I'm taking here again the example of those rooms to play cards, where certain groups want to control the room and don't want others to come in. So recommendations to counter resident abuse in those type of facilities, both in long-term care and also private residence, are prevention and awareness raising. So for that, we will be targeting mainly older persons. It's to do some type of tracking, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes, because tracking is a really important issue. So we have to name the problem and really write it down and do some follow-up. It's direct intervention when people are witnessing, and it's not only for the practitioners, it's also for the older persons, and a general need for education towards resident to resident abuse. What we found in the literature also is that the studies were mainly done outside of Quebec. We didn't find a lot done here. Most studies were actually focusing on long-term care centers like Ellen just presented. And we were very, very struggled to see that the viewpoint of residents was really under-documented. And it's always, for me, something that will puzzle me, that we do gerontology and we talk as specialists, but we don't take the view of older persons. They are the specialists of their own life. And in those types of settings, they are totally capable of telling their stories, but also contributing in the changes. So the methodology, the first research, the 1-year research, it was participatory, qualitative, and exploratory. We did 7 focus groups with witnesses of abuse. In those groups, we encountered 24 residents, 12 employees, and also 5 general managers. And we actually did those data collection in 3 different settings. For the second research, the first phase where we did the interviews with people who actually experience it, we did interview 13 residents, 6 employees, and 6 external interveners in 4 different residents. I have to say that the first phase here, we started it 10 days before the pandemic. So we had a lot of methodological issues, and we documented that in some papers. So we had to do phone interviews, Zoom interviews, and it was much more complicated. So the second phase of this second project is really the development of the program. And like I said earlier, with 2 focus, something very positive, promoting wellness care or benevolence, and countering resident to resident abuse. And we did the partnership research with a working committee composed of 3 employees, 3 residents, and we had 5 meetings to develop a series of activities and tools, which was quite interesting. And you won't be surprised is that there's always some gender issues in those type of settings. So the 3 employees and the 3 residents were all females. So we really tried to have males, but we were not able to. So like I said, we started this spring the evaluation of this testing. It will be undergoing all summer. And in the fall, we will be able to complete the program and promote it. So the manifestation of abuse, it's quite interesting to know by nature what it is. Like I said earlier, it's a lot of verbal interactions, so terrible words that will be said or insults. It can be physical, it can be also ignorance. So trying to exclude people, not to talk to them, you're just behaving like if they don't exist. It does occur in different places. And I said earlier, I would come back on the elevator situation. As you may know, lunchtime is a very important time in those buildings because a lot of people want to go to the dining room at the same time. There's few elevators and there can be a lot of people around it. So we saw that there can be a person who can be very rude to each other, and some will use their cane actually to push the other or even to tap on the others. So it can be very, very tense. The triggers, as I said earlier, are a lot of times not understanding what are the characteristics of the others. But some people are just unpolite, and actually some people have been unpolite all their life, and they will continue to be unpolite in those settings. while others have a lot of difficulties to live in a community, which are those buildings. And we have to remember that for many older adults, it's the first time in their life that they have to live in a community like that because they had their own house. So when you move in an apartment building and you have to learn the rules at 75 or 80 years old, for a certain person, it can be very, very difficult. So there's a lot of effect for the person involved. Like I said earlier, the worst effect is will actually people will go into their apartment and decide not to go out anymore. Some people will get sick, and some people actually decided to move out because it was difficult. What came out during our data collection during the pandemic is that there was new locations also for the aggressions, and actually, it was on the balconies because a lot of people were on their balconies. And we saw people insulting each other from one balcony to the other. Another thing that came out was also all the stress with the different measures. And when people were forgetting to put on their mask or forgetting to keep the proper distance, people can become very aggressive towards them. So there's a series also of barriers and facilitators for reporting. I'll come back to that in a few slides. I'll also talk about intervention and management strategy, and I will say more about the program. The information at the bottom of the slide is quite important because we did all these data collection trying to find what were the proper words to talk about the problem. And older person as well as employees don't like the word abuse, don't like the word aggression, don't like the word mistreatment. And they proposed, actually it was a common agreement that we would use intolerance. So it's more easy for them to talk about intolerance than aggression. The same thing regarding what we could foster. Like I said, it's a wellness care approach, but it's also benevolence. So it's something more positive. It's a word that they like and that they can actually use in their day-to-day conversation. So like I said, the manifestation of abuse are psychological, physical, material. I didn't talk about that. So things that are broken. So people that will actually put something on their door, like a picture or something like that, and it's torn out. And we also had some sexual violation or sexual aggression, and it was mainly sexual comments. So, and it was actually quite interesting because those sexual comments were towards older women, but also towards older men and also towards gay couples. So, like I said, the new arrivals, the people who are atypical, the people who have physical or cognitive challenges are actually more the target, but also people who may display in their non-verbal way of being certain insecurities, like people walking with their head down, who seem more vulnerable. It seems that they are more an easy target for aggression. Um, Regarding the location, I forgot to talk about the exterior grounds. So especially in summer times, people are outside and you will see what we see inside. So if there are some tables, some chairs under a tree and everything, so some group will try to control the area and to exclude some residents from it. So the consequences are psychological, physical, and social, and the worst being social isolation. But regarding the physical consequences, many people talk about their sleep disorders and also the fact that they had to change their behavior. So they were more anxious, they were sad, and some people even talked about the fact that they had suicidal thoughts. So here's a quote from one resident. It's the male resident, and he says, "This is not a life. Last year, I thought it was great at the residence. This year, I'm really unhappy. Sometimes I have suicidal thoughts." That's a hard one. "She makes me feel very uncomfortable. I don't leave my apartment. I no longer want to know anything." Actually, this quote is from an incident that occurred between a woman and this man in an elevator. The man was coming back from a dinner with his daughter, and he had a few glasses of wine, so probably had a little smell of alcohol. And he came into the elevator and he started a conversation. And probably the woman thought that he was too familiar and not polite enough. So she was very unhappy. And then she started rumor on him saying that he had alcohol problems. So now that man feels that he's stigmatized in the residence. So people can ask for help, but there are some obstacles. So what will drive them for reporting it will the fact of having a connection with a trusted individual. And a lot of time it could be one of the employees. People will also ask for help if they have reached their personal limits, if they acknowledge the situation. And this is really important because a lot of time people don't realize that what they're going through is aggression. So it shows all the importance of the awareness programs to be certain to be able to put words on this situation. And others will also ask for help or report when there's a desire for common good. So saying, I'm doing it because I don't want others to go through what I just went through. But the obstacles are important. One is the lack of knowledge about internal and external resources. So people don't know where to go to. So if they go to the person who is responsible for lasers, that could be one solution. Do they go to the manager? So one of the things in our program is to make the processes more clear to report the situation. People can have a fear of reprisal. They can have a misconception about what is abuse and its effect. They also sometimes want to protect the persons that are involved, especially for the people who are the witness. And if they're a witness and they actually like the person who was the person with the aggressive behavior, a lot of time they don't want to talk about it. But also people will say that they tend to shut up in those living facilities because they don't want any problems. So if they don't want any problem, they won't say it because they prefer to stay quiet. So we did document a series of intervention and management strategies. Well, the worst strategy is no intervention. And it happens quite often, actually. So people will kind of consider aggression to be normal, or they don't know what to do. There could be some physical or verbal intervention. People said a lot of time that if they're capable of having some humor, it will kind of calm down the situation. People will say they also try to have some distractions, so change the subject or put the attention somewhere else. And in few cases, there's been some physical interfering between two persons when there was a danger of physical abuse. And the most common is reporting to the management. And it actually, practitioners were telling us that they could report to the manager by email or in person, but it's not always systematic. So this is one of the things that we want to do in our program is to make it very systematic that all the cases will be reported for having some intervention. And we were a little bit worried when some practitioners or some employees told us that actually once they reported, they think that all their job is done. While for us, no, if you've been involved, you have to stay involved also in the solution on a longer term. So the management strategies are that the person involved are met and information is gathered. Also, the manager and the management team will put in place appropriate strategies to resolve or monitor the situation, such as surveillance patrol, closing the location when the aggression occurs, and offer psychological services to the person involved. So what we saw actually is some manager calling for a general meeting and actually really trying to start a conversation on the issues. And when needed, like I said, they can refer to external organization or stakeholders for support. So our program that we crafted has a series of activities. I cannot present them all. But we're targeting residents, we're targeting employees, we're targeting management. As per example, we created a series of posters. Some are clearly naming aggression or intolerance. The others are really naming more the positive aspects, so the benevolence. We also crafted some training for the employees. With the residence committee, we also did a sheet where actually they can do the follow-up of the situation when it's reported to them. But we work also a lot with the managers who are usually the responsible to be involved in those situations. On a preventive side, just to give you an example, when a newcomer is there, we actually plan a new program when they are paired with a long-time resident that will actually kind of initiate them to the life in the residence, but also outside the residence, like where is the pharmacy, where is the grocery store, how can we manage to be helpful to each other. So the four objectives of the programs are really based on the recommendations coming from the interviews to enhance wellness care throughout the residence, to improve the welcome and integration process for new residents, to make intervention tools accessible, and also to clarify the management of resident to resident situations. So my conclusion, if we compare our study to the others, we've seen that resident-to-resident aggression has diverse manifestations. The management of those situations is usually done case by case, and it's not always the same way of working. And there needs to be a cultural change in those settings towards wellness care to counter resident-to-resident aggression. So our study will corroborate previous findings that will say that it has psychological, physical, and social consequences, that it occurs mainly in public spaces, that some residents are more susceptible of being targeted, and that there's a need for prevention, direct intervention when people are witnessing, but also there's a major need of education, both for residents, for employees, and even residents ask us if they could invite their family members to the talks when we're there. What is unique to our study? It's the first one to study or investigate the dimensions from various viewpoints of different actors. So we really took that systemic approach. And also we did it with the aim of developing a program. So it's not just a study for a study, but really introducing changes. Our intervention program will act to do the promotion of wellness care and countering resident-to-resident abuse. It reunites multidimensional models like awareness raising, prevention, intervention, and also organizational or management level. And it proposes different tools and activities for all actors. So we're targeting the residents, the employees, and the managers. So thank you very much. Here is the website of the research chair. It's a fully bilingual website, so you can find information in French or in English. We did publish a series of papers out of this research, and the program will be accessible in the fall. It's going to be available both in French and in English. It will be disseminated all through Canada. Maybe a last thing that I didn't have a lot of time to say is that other speakers today talked about ageism, sexism, and ableism. We saw a lot of that in our study, but that would be a totally other conversation. So thank you